Hi, this is Gary. Today we're going to be discussing about fig cuttings and doing figs. I also got citrus cuttings that I've done, and set this over here for now. And fig cuttings are easy to do. They're if you're going to get started trying to propagate through root cuttings, it's one of the easier ones to do. I mean, you can actually take a cutting, a fig cutting like this, stick it in the ground, and probably 50–75% of the time it'll go ahead and come up. But I don't like putting them in the ground just because you don't know what's going to happen. But if I was to put this in a raised bed, it's probably going to root. But so it's kind of easy to kind of learn on. Some plants are easier than others. I know the jujube fruit tree is almost impossible to get the root cut, to get a rooted cutting. First thing you want to do is have a good potting mix. This is the potting mix that I make on my own. It's 5 parts pine bark mulch, 1 part perlite, 1 part peat moss, and so it's 5:1 ratio of perlite, of pine bark mulch, peat moss, and perlite. So, and it makes it good. You don't want to have big chunks in there. You also don't want to do like a seeding mix, because seeding mix is going to stay too wet. One of 3 things is going to happen whenever you do a root cutting. It's either going to dry out like these have here. These are what I did last year. Some of them didn't make it. Okay. It's going to rot, which that tends to be what normally happens. People keep them too wet and they rot. And the third thing is they actually go ahead and leave out. Now, you do have to be patient when you do these things. This one here I did this time last year, and what I do is different than most other people. I use a clear solo cup like this. That way, if you look at this one, you're thinking, hey, is it rooting yet? And you can look in there, there's no roots. All right, I can look at this one. It's been there for a year also. There's no roots in it. So that way I don't have to think, if I'm trying to say, well, am I going to pull on it, I'm going to test it. You just leave it there. Now, I don't know if these are going to make it or not, because it's been about a year. However, this one here, about 1 month ago, 6 weeks ago, it threw out some growth, and now I've got rootings down here. So I can tell it's got roots on it without ever having to, you know, tug on it or pull at it. It's really not got enough roots. It's going to hold together, so I'm going to leave it in there for a while. It hasn't even got any roots to the hole yet, but I know it's got roots to it. And once I see those roots, I can add a little bit of fertilizer. So I'll talk about that here later. So all you're going to do is you're going to take this peat moss, this potting soil, put it in the cup. You're going to mash your cup down to get it nice and packed. I try to use a stick. This is a long stick, just because that's what I found. And what I'll do, I'll take it and I'll stick it into the mix to make the hole. Okay? And I don't want to go, the reason I got this, I don't want to go all the way down. So if you notice, this is, when I push this in, it doesn't go all the way to the ground, all the way to the bottom. If you go all the way to the bottom and you get a water stand here, that's a place to where rot can start. So you kind of want to keep it 1/2 inch to an inch above the bottom of the container. And one thing that I do when I'm cutting these, the bottoms I cut at an angle, and the others I cut, you know, the tops of them I cut straight off. I guess this shows you a little bit better here. This is the bottom, and I cut straight off. Why do I do that? If you take all these leaves off, sometimes you can't tell what's the bottom, what's the top. And if you plant this thing upside down, it's not going to work. I did see a guy one time that did a graft upside down. It's still going to grow, and had to do a U-shape. But one thing that some people say, on the back side of it, you can take your knife and just make a cut on it, and that would give it a place for roots to start forming. Then after that, I do use rooting hormone. I've used it and I have not used it. It's just kind of an insurance policy. So go up till you go above that first the first node on your deal, knock off all the excess, and you stick it down in there till you feel the bottom. I'll go like this, then I water it in. After I water it, I'm going to leave it. We're underneath a live oak tree. Sun is not your friend. You don't want too much sun to hit these things. I leave them outside because I like the humidity changing. I'm in a very humid environment, so some people don't want them there. I'm also in a subtropical region. I'm in zone 8B. We don't get very many cold weather. If it drops below, if it gets into the 20s, I'm pulling this thing, put it in the garage. Some people actually try to grow them in the garage if you're further north. One other thing, if you tend to overwater your plants, one thing that's kind of neat, and I've tried and it has worked, though it hadn't worked on that one yet. This here is what they call Optisorb. It's a oil absorbent, but it's 100% diatomaceous earth, and it holds water well, but it's always going to hold air too. So if you're a person that likes to overwater things or tends to overwater things, this works pretty good. The only thing is you can put a little bit in there, okay? And unlike the other one, it does not like to push through this. So I'll take the cutting, and this is one of the sweet lemons, the Ujitsu sweet lemon. Then you'll set it in here where you want it, and then just fill up around it. Now you notice this here is on this one it's dry, the other's not. It doesn't matter on this because these it's gonna moisture up just fine. Moisture up, I guess that's a word. On your potting mix, you want it to be about like this. You want to have some moisture in it. If it's completely dry, it's gonna be hard to ever get that moisture in there because peat moss and things sometimes they'll repel water. They don't like to absorb the water. So you want to kind of get at least moist, and then you'll water them on in. And I just continue to do this same thing on this. And again, you've got to mark to where you want to go down to. You go in. And again, I know it's the bottom because it's got this cut it, and it's kind of that easy. One thing you do not want to do not add fertilizer to these things until you see roots. What fertilizer does is it will suck the moisture out and dry out the cuttings. Also, any roots that do start to form, it's a salt, so it could burn the roots. But once they start doing this and you start seeing roots, then you'll want to put a small amount of fertilizer. And I'm talking about if you're using Miracle Grow, the small spoon on it, I'll probably use one of those. I think it's half a teaspoon in a gallon of water. And sometimes I'll even use less than that. You want just a little bit of fertilizer in there, okay? Not much. Don't overdo it. People tend to overdo it. I know one time I had somebody that I sent them some cuttings, and they put them in the potting mix. They got them to start, they leafed out, assuming they had some roots on them. First thing that she did, she poured a bunch of fertilizer on it and took it out and put it out in the sun. And it started, then they started wilting, and she called, or she didn't call me, she emailed me, and or it was on a chat deal. I said, as far as the fertilizer, just water it through and try to get the fertilizer out. So put them back in the shade. It's going to be, on this, it's going to be the same thing that you would do with the tomato plant. Slowly get it out to where it's back out into the sun. Because, like I say, the sun, this only has so many, it has so many leaves, so many roots. If you have too many leaves to the roots, those leaves are going to take all the moisture out and it's going to kill the plant. So, if you get some leaves, if it starts coming out, slowly adapt it back to the sun. Don't overwater them. I leave them outside unless it gets really cold. And be patient. Like I say, this one took almost 8 to 9 months to make. I've had figs. I had one fig that was in this setup, and it got into like June. It's like I got tired of it and didn't look like it was going to make, so I actually just set it out off on the ground In July, I noticed it had thrown out a couple of leaves. And I looked in it and it had some roots on it. So I picked it back up, put it in, and kept it alive. But it was totally neglected, just laying on the side, and it still made it in July. So until they dry up, you still got a chance. So don't get too impatient with it. It can take a few months, or it may take, you know, 2 or 3 weeks. Don't really always know exactly why. I always do the figs and stuff during the winter months. When everything is went back, you can. Sometimes you can take the green cuttings and do them, but you want to do those fresh. You don't want to be, you know, send them off or whatever. But you know, give it a try. I enjoy doing it. And anyway, if you have any questions, comment down the bottom. Thank you.